Welcome to another episode of the Midnight Investigator, where we take another alternative look at moments in history. Now, I'm not sure what you're going to make of this next one, so it's better to start from the beginning. If you've ever driven a lonely road late at night, you know that feeling. Your headlights cut through the darkness, and your mind starts to play tricks on you. But what if it's not just a trick? Welcome to Bluebell Hill, a stretch of road in Kent, England, that holds the chilling title of being one of Britain's most haunted highways. For decades, drivers have reported encounters so strange, so terrifying, that they've become the stuff of legend. This is the story of the Bluebell Hill Ghost, a phantom hitchhiker who appears from the shadows, only to vanish into thin air. Our story could begin as far back as 1916. That summer, a 20-year-old servant girl named Emily Trigg went missing on her way to visit her mother on Bluebell Hill. Weeks later, her body was found in the nearby woods. Her murder was brutal and remains unsolved to this day. Some locals believe that Emily's restless spirit is the first ghost of the hill, sometimes appearing as a woman in a red scarf who steps in front of cars before disappearing. The first official reports of a ghostly woman started to surface in 1934. A local cyclist named as Renee was riding home one autumn evening and had an uncanny encounter. That same year, a motorist also reported seeing a spectral figure on the roadside. These early accounts are fragmented and lack detail, but they suggest that something was haunting this road long before the tragedy that would make it famous. Now, fast forward to 1962. A local man named Bob Van de Peer claimed he picked up a young woman hitchhiking on the hill. A little while later, he glanced into his rearview mirror and his heart stopped. The back seat was empty. She had vanished without a sound, without opening a door. This event happened 3 years before the incident that would forever define Bluebell Hill, raising a huge question: is the ghost really tied to the famous crash, or is it something much, much older? Okay, so let's take a look at what makes Bluebell Hill so infamous. The date is November the 19th, 1965. It was a rainy Friday night, and 22-year-old Suzanne Brown was on the eve of her wedding. She was driving 3 friends home along Bluebell Hill when her Ford Cortina collided with another car. The crash was horrific. 3 of the 4 young women in Suzanne's car died. Suzanne herself passed away from her injuries on November the 24th, the very day she was supposed to get married. And ever since then, people have wondered if the phantom hitchhiker is the spirit of the bride-to-be, a wandering spirit trying to get home or to fulfill an obligation that had been denied her. 2 years later, in 1967, the Kent Messenger newspaper ran the first article about a mysterious female hitchhiker, officially connecting the ghostly sightings to the 1965 crash site. And so the legend was born. Then in 1968, paranormal researcher Tom Harbour was collecting stories from multiple drivers who all claimed to have picked up a chatty young woman near the Lower Bell pub. They'd have a normal conversation, but just before reaching her supposed destination, she would simply disappear from their moving car. The vanishing hitchhiker of Bluebell Hill was now a local phenomenon. One of the coldest accounts comes from an ambulance driver named Paul Tona. It was Christmas Eve in the late 1960s. He and his partner were heading back over the hill after attending a call, when a lone figure in a wedding dress calmly stepped into the road. They stopped, and the woman asked for a ride to Rochester. Wanting to help on such a cold night, they let her into the back of the ambulance. But when they arrived in Rochester, she was gone. Paul insists this story is true, adding a further haunting twist to the tale. The sightings kept coming. In 1969, a man driving home to Rochester saw 2 people walking along the A229. As his car got closer, they vanished. On another night, he saw them again, and this time, a car coming from the other direction drove straight through them. He was understandably deeply confused. Then, in 1971, a driver named Jane Skeen had a classic encounter. A young woman in white suddenly appeared in front of his car. He stopped and offered her a lift to Chatham. She was quiet during the drive, and the moment she stepped out of the car, she disappeared. Some versions of this story say the address she gave belonged to the family of a deceased girl, blurring the lines between fact and folklore. A year later, in 1972, Bob Van de Peer, possibly the same man from the 1962 incident, reported the exact same thing. He picked up a girl, looked back in his rearview mirror, and she had vanished. But the most famous and terrifying incident happened on July 13, 1974. A 35-year-old bricklayer named Morris Goodnow burst into Rochester Police Station in a complete panic. He told them that just after midnight, a young girl had run out in front of his car on Bluebell Hill. He told police he felt a terrible bang. He was sure he'd hit her. He stopped, found a girl lying in the road with cuts and bruises, and wrapped her in a blanket. When no other cars would stop to help, he drove to the police station for assistance. When the police returned with him to the scene, they found only the blanket. There was no girl, no blood, and no damage to his car. A massive search, even with tracker dogs, found nothing. No child was reported missing. A traumatized Morris insisted, "I'm not going mad, but where did she go?" His story made national headlines and reignited the legend. Interestingly, he described the girl as being about 10 years old, much younger than the bride-to-be, yet the two stories became forever linked. After a few years of quiet, the ghost returned with a vengeance in November 1992. Ian Sharp, a coach driver, was traveling down the A229. Suddenly, a young woman ran out from the central reservation. He said she locked eyes with him for a split second before he felt the thud of impact. He saw her go under the bonnet of his coach. Horrified, he screeched to a halt, thinking he'd killed her. He looked under the coach, and there was nothing. No body, no blood, nothing. He raced to the police station, where officers calmly told him about the legend. He wasn't the first. A full police search confirmed it. There was no sign of an accident. Just weeks later, two other drivers reported the same thing in the same area. They both hit a woman who darted into the road. And they both noted one specific detail. She was wearing a red scarf. Again, searches found nothing. Could this be the ghost of Emily Trigg, the murdered girl from 1916? The apparitions weren't always a young woman. In January 1993, Malcolm Maiden was driving his family through thick fog on the hill. They saw a frail, elderly woman slowly crossing the road. As they got closer, she turned to face them. Her face twisted in a hateful expression, and she hissed at their car. The family felt an overwhelming sense of evil. Malcolm slammed on the accelerator to get away, and in the rearview mirror, they saw the old woman shaking a bundle of sticks at them. When they reported it, the police confirmed that other drivers had seen the same haggard old woman. It seems Bluebell Hill might be home to more than one ghost. With all the media attention, paranormal investigators from ASSAP held an overnight vigil on the anniversary of the 1965 crash. They brought night vision gear and monitored the road, but the bitterly cold night remained quiet. No ghost made an appearance. But the hill wasn't done. In 1999, Bob Prowse, the brother of the actor who played Darth Vader, was driving when he saw a tall, blond man standing in the road, surrounded by a bluish glow. He slammed on his brakes and swerved, but the figure vanished. He described the man as standing stock still, almost at attention. Could this be a ghostly soldier from one of the ancient battles fought on the hill? Decades later, the legend is stronger than ever. The story has been turned into films and featured in countless books and TV shows. In 2025, Time Out magazine even named the A229 at Bluebell Hill the most haunted road in the UK, citing over 50 supernatural reports since the 1960s. Witnesses continued to come forward, as one told the magazine, "I'm not a ghost guy at all, but I know what I saw. She was there, and then she wasn't." So is it the spirit of a bride-to-be, a murder victim, a witch, or something else entirely? Or is it just a powerful urban legend, fueled by a dark, winding road and our own fears? Whatever the truth may be, the stories persist. So the next time you're driving on a lonely road at night and you see a figure by the roadside, the question remains, will you stop? Okay, there's a lot to digest here, and honestly, there isn't enough time in a short episode like this to do it justice. So let's put our feet back on the ground for a second and look at what we actually have. First, we've got multiple sightings spread over decades, and they don't all describe the same person. Sometimes it's a young woman. Sometimes it's a bride. Sometimes it's a child. Sometimes it's an old woman. That matters, because it suggests we're not dealing with one neat ghost story. We might be dealing with more than one presence, or more than one legend layered onto the same location. Second, we've got plenty of reports, but only a small number of people ever put their names to what they claim they saw. Most accounts are secondhand, retold through newspapers, books, and local talk, and that's where stories can grow teeth. And then there's the biggest complication of all. By the time many of these later sightings happen, Bluebell Hill already has a reputation. Once a place becomes known for something, it changes how people interpret what they see. A shadow becomes a figure becomes a warning, a near miss becomes a haunting. We're also told there are police reports connected to some of these incidents. If those records exist, they need verifying because official involvement has a strange effect. It doesn't always prove a haunting, but it does make the story feel real. It gives it weight. And once the media gets hold of it, the narrative tends to steer everyone in the same direction. Take the early 1990s report of an old woman crossing the road. In most places, that's just a moment of concern and caution. But here, on Bluebell Hill, that same image instantly becomes something else. Context turns ordinary into sinister, and that's exactly how legends stay alive. So what are we really looking at? Natural causes are absolutely on the table here. Bluebell Hill has fog, steep gradients, the glare off wet tarmac, tired drivers, and sudden changes in visibility, the perfect recipe for misperception. But the variety of figures, the repeated impact claims, and the way the incidents cluster around the same area, that's what keeps this case from settling. And yes, there are other theories too. Some people talk about thin places, others point to the idea of ley lines, or a kind of geographical trigger, a location that seems to attract strange events like a magnet. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying it's part of why this case won't stay quiet. Either way, one thing is clear. This story needs a deeper investigation, and it's not going to be solved in a short video like this. The good news is I'm fairly local to the area. So this doesn't end here. The next step is simple. We go there. We check the layout. We map the hotspots. We find out whether these sightings cluster around one specific stretch, or whether the entire hill is the problem. So we will revisit Bluebell Hill, and when we do, we'll see what the road feels like at night, what the visibility is really like, and whether the legend matches the geography. If you want that follow-up episode, please like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and it helps me justify going deeper with investigations like this. You've been watching the Midnight Investigator. Thanks for watching, and until next time, question everything. Don't let someone else do your thinking.